All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to tackle one of the most important verbs in all of Italian. I'm talking about essere. Seriously, if you want to speak Italian, you've got to get this one down. It's a total game changer. So let me ask you something. If you had to bet on the single most powerful, most fundamental verb in the entire language, what would you pick? Just take a guess. What's the one verb that holds it all together? Yep, you got it. It's essere. Now, I know it means to be, but trust me, it is so much more than that. This thing is basically the backbone of Italian communication. You could almost call it a superverb. Okay, so here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll talk about why it's the heart of Italian. Then we'll cover the 5 big jobs it has. We'll spend some extra time on its toughest role as a helper verb. After that, we'll hit the must-know conjugations, and we'll wrap it all up with a few common mistakes to watch out for. Sound good? Let's do it. All right, first up, the heart of Italian. I mean, why all the fuss? Before we get into the nitty-gritty grammar, let's just get a feel for why this one verb is at the absolute core of everything in the language.
So the main thing you need to get is that essere is not just a simple one-for-one translation of to be. No way. Think of it more like a powerhouse. It connects ideas, it helps out other verbs, it's how you talk about who you are, what you are, where you are, pretty much everything. It really is the Swiss Army knife of Italian verbs.
Okay, let's get down to business. Section 2, the 5 jobs of essere. You know, the best way to really understand this verb is to think of it as having like 5 different superpowers, 5 distinct roles it can play in a sentence. Let's check them out one by one. So here they are, the 5 different hats it can wear. It can be a simple connector, or a copula. It can talk about existence, or identity. It describes a state or a condition. It tells you all about position and location. And last but not least, it acts as a helper, or an auxiliary, for other verbs. We're going to break down each of these right now. Okay, job number 1, being a copula. I know, it's a fancy grammar word, but all it really means is connector. It just links a subject, in this case Luca, to a description, intelligent. Super simple, right? Luca è intelligente. This is probably the most common way you're going to see it used. Next up, existence and identity. Basically, essere is how you state that something, well, exists. C'è un gatto. There is a cat. Simple as that. You also use it to identify things, like pointing and saying, hey, this is my drink, or that is my cat. All right, on to job 3, describing a state or a condition. This is how you tell people how you're feeling. Are you tired? Sono stanco. Are you happy? You'd use essere. It works for temporary things, like being tired, or even more permanent states. It's all about describing how things are. And of course, you've got to be able to say where things are, right? Well, number 4, location. Essere has your back. It tells you exactly where a person or an object is. La scuola è in centro. The school is in the center. It literally puts your subject on the map. And now for its final and maybe its most impressive job, the auxiliary or helper verb. This is where things get really interesting. Essere teams up with other verbs to create more complex tenses, like you see here in è arrivato, he has arrived. Now this can seem tricky, but stick with me, we're going to make it super clear. And that leads us perfectly into our next section, essere, the ultimate helper. Okay, I know this is the part where a lot of learners get a little nervous, but I promise you, it is not as scary as it seems. It all comes down to one single golden rule. This is it, the golden rule. If you take away only one thing about essere as a helper verb, let it be this. The past participle, that's the second verb in the pair, it has to agree with the subject. It has to match its gender and its number. Let's look at an example, it'll make perfect sense. Okay, check this out. Maria è partita. See that a at the end of partita? That is there for a reason. Because Maria is one person and she's female, the verb ending has to match. It changes to end in a. It's like the verb is pointing right back at Maria. And here's another one to really nail it down. I ragazzi sono arrivati. So, I ragazzi means the boys. That's masculine and it's plural. So what happens? The verb ending changes to an I to match. Arrivati. It's a really neat system once you see the pattern, right? The other big thing essere does as a helper is create what's called the passive voice. All that means is the subject of the sentence isn't the one doing the action. Instead, the action is happening to it. And the formula is always essere plus that past participle.
Think about this. La torta è stata mangiata. The cake was eaten. The cake didn't do any eating, did it? Nope. It was eaten. The action happened to the cake. That's the passive voice in a nutshell, and you just can't do it without essere.
Okay, so we've got the what and the why down. Now for the how. Section 4 is all about the must-know conjugations. These are the forms you'll actually be using day in and day out in real conversations. Look, Italian has a lot of tenses, but don't freak out. You don't need to know all of them right away. For now, just focus on these two, the present tense, the presente, and the recent past, the passato prossimo. Seriously, if you can nail these two, you'll be able to handle a ton of real-world conversations. Start with the present. Sono, sei, siamo, siete, sono. Get those down cold. And that brings us to our final section, the common mistakes you'll want to avoid. Look, learning the rules is great, but knowing where people usually trip up, that's how you get ahead of the curve and sound way more natural, way faster. This is it, the big one. Mistake number 1 is forgetting that golden rule we talked about, forgetting to make the past participle agree. You see it all the time. Someone will say, le porte sono aperto. Nope. Le porte, the doors, that's feminine plural, so it has to be aperte. That little e on the end makes all the difference. It's a classic rookie mistake, and now you know how to avoid it.
And the other major trap is confusing essere with avere, the other big helper verb. Now, when to use which is a whole other explainer for another day. But the key thing to know right now is that you can't just swap them. The main verb decides which helper it needs, and picking the wrong one can totally mess up the meaning of your sentence. So just be aware of that.
So, era or siamo stati? Have you ever been stuck on that? It's like a classic dilemma for pretty much everyone learning Italian, right? I mean, these two little phrases can feel like this huge hurdle. But don't you worry, we're going to crack this code together.
Okay, let's kick things off with Level 1, the past tense showdown. Yeah, we're putting two heavyweights of Italian grammar head-to-head here, the imperfecto and the passato prossimo. Let's figure out which one to use and when.
Okay, so here's the absolute core difference, the thing you really need to get. Think of the imperfecto, it's like a landscape painting of the past. It's all about setting the scene, describing how things used to be. But the passato prossimo, that's more like a snapshot, a quick picture of a specific completed action. So, it's scene versus action. If you remember that, you're halfway there.
And this example, it's just perfect for the imperfetto. See that era? It's describing a continuous state, something that was true over a long period. It wasn't a one-time thing, it was just a characteristic of Marco's whole childhood. We're literally painting that background picture I was talking about.
Okay, now let's flip it. See the difference here? Ieri sera, last night, that phrase pins the action down to a very specific moment. Going to the cinema, well, that was a single completed event. It started and then it finished. That's our snapshot, right? A classic case for the passato prossimo. Siamo stati.
And hey, before we wrap up Level 1, let's just take a quick peek at the future. The simple future, sarà, is, well, it's refreshingly simple. It's just for predictions and things that will be true in the future, just like you see here. And with that, boom. Level 1 complete. Nice work.
All right, ready for Level 2? We're leaving the world of facts, what happened, what will happen, and we're stepping into the world of what if. This is where the conditional mood comes to play. It's the key to exploring all those hypotheticals, giving advice, and even making polite requests.
Okay, here is a super crucial tip. Ready? Whenever you find yourself thinking the word would in English, your brain should just immediately switch over to the conditional in Italian. Seriously, train yourself to do that. It's your golden key for talking about what would be or would have been, for exploring all those alternate realities.
All right, time for a little challenge. Take a look at this sentence. That first part, al tuo posto, in your place, that's a total dead giveaway, isn't it? It tells you we're deep in hypothetical land. So, how would you fill in that blank? Take a second and think about it.
And the answer is sarei. In your place, I would be more careful. See? This is the conditional doing its thing. It's not a fact. It's just a piece of advice, and it's all based on a hypothetical situation. Makes sense, right? Okay, everybody, take a deep breath. We've made it to Level 3, the subjunctive. I know. This is often seen as like the final boss for anyone learning Italian, but trust me, we are about to totally demystify it. It really just boils down to one single key idea. Seriously, for just a second, forget all the complex rules you might have heard.
Just focus on this one thing. The subjunctive is the mood of subjectivity. That's it. It's for your opinions, your doubts, your hopes, your feelings, basically anything that isn't a hard objective fact. It's the language you use to talk about your inner world.
And here's a really practical trick for you. Just look for trigger phrases. Whenever you see verbs like penso che, I think that, spero che, I hope that, an alarm should just go off in your head. Ding, ding, ding. That's your signal, that's your cue to use the subjunctive.
Okay, let's give it a shot. Look at the sentence here. Do you see the trigger phrase right there at the beginning? Penso che, I think that. So, is that a fact or is it an opinion? It's an opinion, right? So, what form of essere do we need?
Exactly right, sia. Because penso che is all about opinion, the verb that comes after it has to be in the subjunctive. And just like that, you've conquered a huge hurdle in Italian grammar. Seriously, well done. Okay, you've cleared all the individual levels. Now it's time for the final challenge, the mix-up. This is where we put everything together, because in a real conversation, right, you have to choose the right tense or mood just like that, on the fly. So let's practice doing just that. I'm going to give you a simple 3-step mental checklist to use. First, just analyze the context. Are we talking about the past, the future, a hope, a hypothetical? Second, spot the clue words. Look for those triggers like ieri, spero che, or se. And third, based on those clues, you just select the right grammatical tool from your toolkit. Okay, let's use that checklist right now. Spero che domani il tempo bello. Step 1. What's the context? It's a hope. Step 2. What's the clue? Right there. Spero che. I hope that. So, what does that little phrase trigger? It triggers the subjunctive. The correct answer has to be sia. Because hoping is a subjective feeling, right? It's not a fact, so we need the congiuntivo. See how that little checklist just walks you right to the answer? It's super helpful. Let's do one more. This one's a little bit trickier. This time the clue isn't just one word. It's the whole see or if structure. If he had studied more. So that's setting up an impossible hypothetical situation in the past. Something that didn't happen. So, what would the result of that hypothetical be? The answer is sarebbe stato. The exam wouldn't have been so difficult. We're talking about a hypothetical result of a condition that was in the past, so we need the past conditional. I know this is advanced stuff, but you're keeping up and you're doing great. And that's it. You've completed the whole workout. You tackled the past tense, the conditional, the subjunctive, and you even survived the final mix-up. And listen, this is way more than just memorizing grammar rules. This is genuinely a new superpower you have for your Italian conversations. So let's do a super quick review of your new toolkit. You've got the imperfecto for telling the background story, the passato prossimo for that finished event, the conditional for talking about what would be, and of course the subjunctive for everything you feel, hope, or doubt. Seriously, with just these 4 tools, you can express pretty much anything. So you now have the keys. You can express yourself with so much more nuance and precision in Italian. You can describe the past. You can imagine what could be. You can share your real opinions and your hopes. You've totally unlocked the power of essere. So my question for you is, what story are you going to tell first?